what is facilitation and when it's significant to use? I mean, the characteristics, like the answer is in the system, unlocking full potential, share understanding and knowledge, and application, strategy, team development, impact, and so on.
Okay, thank you. So what is facilitation and when, right?
Yeah.
This is what is facilitation. So let's see. For me, facilitation is, this is meant to say it's holding a safe space. And this little dog is loyally safeguarding what is fragile in order to give voice to what otherwise would not have been given a voice, and allowing the unlocking. This is just a flower, but it's unlocking of knowledge. So you can call it metaphor for creating growth, so that people or entities can either overcome or cut through challenges by their own strength. That would be facilitation for me. So implicit here is that it's the no answers, it's holding a space, safeguarding, thus giving voices to answers, giving a voice, so that real growth are unlocked, so people can cut through the sword or overcome challenges by their own strength. That's the hand. So the when is really when one cares about actually people grow, right? People growth, if you want. And the other one was this notion of truly creating a sense of direction with commitment, and then this idea that it is fueled by the brain, so by the people. And out here, I just try to visualize that another part of the when is that you need and you want this actual real commitment when you want to avoid being caught by the classic shiny or glittery objects that normally distract and divert the path of us as individuals or as companies or families. So you want to avoid that, the blinky things, the shiny things that make us go ooh, ooh, ooh. And you want to fall in, this is a propeller as a metaphor for, you want to avoid the trap of doing what has always been done. I mean, I know the propeller is coming back in fashion for airplanes, but it was just as a metaphor for not doing what we have always done because things are now different. So maybe the propeller isn't this. So that's really the win.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in facilitation, the point is the people. So we are not bringing knowledge from outside, but we actually make this knowledge come from the people itself. Okay. So what are the what makes the question so important in facilitation, and what are the characteristics of a good facilitation question?
Yeah, they're a little bit overlapping in my head. So try and ask me the first part again. I want to focus the first part. Why is the question so?
Why the question is so important in facilitation, and which are the characteristics?
Why is the question so important? So what characterizes the question and what? I mean, or why is it important? I think so. Some of it came from the first answer. So I actually think we spoke about what is facilitation, right? Because you can't have that thing with the holding of the space and this was holding the space, right?
Yeah.
You can't have that without a question. So I think the other thing I just wanted to say is that why it is because what we want to do is we want to stick a tube. This is meant to be like a tube.
Yeah.
Into the brain, and then I actually put some eyes here to say that the question is like a tube that we stick into the brain for the brain to search what it doesn't know that it knows. So it has these eyes and the tube. So I think that's why the question is so important, right? It's like we need that question/tube to go into the brain and look for it, and that way a good question and the tube here is almost like an analogy that I didn't build, but bear with me for going outside my model, is like we cannot tickle ourselves. Similarly, so that it's not funny when you're kicking yourself, right? Similarly, we cannot make this true by ourselves. We need something to do this, someone to do this for us. And intuitively, I found a couple of characteristics of a good question. These 4. One was it has an element of clarity. So now this is clarity. It has an element, just enough connection with an element inside our brains, but it also has an emotional component. And then I deliberately choose these elements from the skeleton as a metaphor for that it is a little bit disturbing. So it ruffles our feathers a little bit. That's sort of the metaphor here, the skeleton.
Okay. You say about disturbing. Okay. That's remind me about the notion of flow. Why it's so important that participants stay in the flow in facilitation?
Yeah. So should I try and build that as well?
Yeah, and you can be even more general in the sense, beside holding the space, why caring about facilitation, what the facilitators actually have to care about, including being in the flow.
So sorry, say that again.
Yeah, sorry. You can be more broad. I mean, because disturbing means the 4% out of the flow corridor, obviously. So we can talk more broadly about the role of facilitator into a facilitation workshop. So why sometimes you have to disturb a little bit, why you have to care that the people are staying in the flow, and how to hold the space.
So I try to think about the flow, and there's a million things that could be said here, a million articles that could be read, but somehow I sort of stay with these things here, right? Which was something about these are now meant to be neurons. There's something about when they are in that flow state or in that good state with the question and the safe space from my previous months, the neurons connect differently. So this meant that these are firing more, right? You see. More brain dendrites and axons coming together, and they're firing. And then I had these binoculars, which were both sort of an idea of farsightedness and focus at the same time. And the cat, I was playing around with it for a couple of reasons. One is the playfulness, which then again relates over to this, because when we play, something other happens. But as I was placing the cat, I also came to think of it. Sometimes we simply care about this experience of flow because of the actual well-being that it creates, and a well-being that then makes them again think faster, which I actually don't have. This is now think faster, but the well-being is not just for this. I want to feel good. The well-being is simply that things happen faster. We simply get more out of our day, and I kind of return to this disturbing question part, and you can think of that as something. The idea with this disturbing part of the question, maybe I should take in my connecting part as well, and put that here. But the idea is that the disturbing part of the question, maybe combined somehow with the connecting part of the question, is a gentle push for the brain to start walking. And there's this classic, well, it's classic, but this little quote I once heard that a child has said, that to take a step forward, that's why this is walking, you need to lose balance. So, and this is this, you push someone a little bit out of the flow corridor, but not too much. You cannot start walking without losing balance a little bit. It just doesn't happen. So to develop new knowledge, or when you are in flow, you throw yourself out of flow, so you throw yourself out of balance to create the forward movement. So if this is too big, of course, he falls over.
Yeah.
And then that's not what you want. You want them to feel. This should be sufficiently disturbing to give the gentle push so that they start walking. And if you think of the safe space and the connecting, right? It should be so that they're connecting with the legs, if I can use that as a metaphor, so they know how to walk, and they've got the safe space, so they're not actually worried about starting to walk, right? We're not asking them to take a step across out of a cliff, right? Where if they fall, they hurt themselves. So it's disturbing, so they get a gentle push. It's connecting, so they understand how to take the step, and the space was safe, right? so that they dare, right? And if we take the dog back in, they know that, I mean, that's part of this, right? So they know that whatever they walk towards, that flower that was here somewhere, right, is being guarded. So they're not gonna take a daring step forward, engage in something fragile, which will then be ruined by someone else.
May I ask you the last question? When designing a workshop, where do you normally start, or which are the main things that you have to care about?
There are two sides, I think, to this. There's just this one over here. For me, there's an element of, before designing a workshop, there is an element of figuring out, are we talking about, is it really designing a workshop? Is it a workshop? So is there a care about developing knowledge? And is there a care about this surfacing of what's inside the brains? Or is it just a fancy way of finding a path for someone to tell other people's brains what they should think? So it's actually figuring out, is there a care for this? And after that, just get a sense of, okay, which are the brains and the potentials that walk into this room, so that we know that it's not about, this. Then I think there is an element about the end that's worth figuring out. And again, I took some really simple metaphors, but it's like, so if this blue brick, I mean, an analogy could be that it is cold, right? Now, having understood this visual, are we about this? Is this work about helping them to develop a solution where they've sold the experience of cold, right? Because that could be a given. It is going to be cold. We want to develop a solution where we are not cold. Or is this workshop about saying, the current state is this, we want to develop something that makes it this? These are two different kinds of solutions to this as a metaphor. So I think that's sort of the starting point. Getting this one, figuring out that it's not about this, boom, it is truly about this. And then an idea of, which are the brains coming in, which are the potentials coming in. And once we have understood that the experience is this, are we then trying to create a flow that leads to this kind of solution, or one where the brick is changed?
But in any case, you start from the blue brick, with it's the outcome, the goal, the final.
This is the experience
you need,
and then there's an understanding of, so with this, I hesitate calling it a symptom, because it could be more than it is real, right? In that sense, that it is a diagnostic outcome. But are they looking for something like this, so that they will survive in this? Or are they looking for something like this, where this is now disappeared?
Thank you, Per.